It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Shahin Safarian. In 3 words, Dr. Safarian is hardworking, persistent, and a lifelong learner. He lived in the San Diego area for nearly 30 years, where he started 3 dental practices from scratch. Since graduating from Tufts School of Dental Medicine in Boston in 2001, he started taking many continuing education courses, receiving training in cosmetic dentistry, TMJ, and orthodontic treatments. Running his own practice has taught him a great deal about customer service and marketing, and his inspiring success prompted him to start 7-figure dental practice in order to assist other dental practitioners in achieving their own business dreams. Dr. Safarian believes that success is not something you can just have in a blink of an eye. It requires hard work, consistency, self-belief, self-discipline, accountability, and determination. And the reason I had him come on the show today is because he's out there in what I think is the toughest market in America. I mean, California has 6 dental schools. What's their next best idea? To build 6 more? How are you surviving in California, and what advice would you give to some of those kids coming out of those 6 dental schools who say, I want to stay in California, but does California really need another dentist?
Well, they should leave California so we have a better chance. So that's the first advice I would give them. How you doing, Howard?
I'm doing good. So that would really, so you're saying demographics matter, and you would recommend not practicing and not setting, if you, those private dental schools in California are $100,000 a year. So if some kid walks out of dental school at 25 years old with $400,000 and she says, I want to practice in Hollywood, what would you tell her?
First of all, if you're a new grad, you shouldn't open up your own practice.
You should or
really
shouldn't?
need to get out there. Should not.
Okay.
Should not. You should get out there and practice a little bit, build up your speed, get comfortable with the real world of dealing with people. I really think, if you come out immediately out of school, it's a mistake to open up a private practice or even consider going into partnership. I think there's a lot that you need to learn before you're ready for something like that.
Well, tell us, what did you learn along your journey of success to start your website, Safarian MBA? That's Safarian, Safarian, then MBA, and I have my MBA from ASU. Tell us about your journey and how that ended up with starting your 7-figure dental practice, dental company website.
Yeah, in second year of dental school, we all put our lab coats on and we went around for the day calling each other doctor, doctor, doctor. And we were pretty happy that we're finally going to become doctors. And by 4th year, we're thinking about, the lavish lifestyle that we're going to live once we get our DMD degrees. And this was 2001 when I graduated. And by 2008, I'm $2 million in debt and had credit scores in the low 400s. So that lavish dream that I had in my 4th year of dental school really just fell apart once I got into the real world. And I think this is one of the challenges for a lot of the new grads is the lack of preparation that we have. So then, obviously 2007-8 were hard years. And I started to realize that if I continue to think like a dentist, and with the internet and social media picking up a lot of steam in the late, 2008, 9, 10, it's going to be a losing proposition, and it's going to be a tough environment to try to survive, especially being in California. It's not easy. So second office I opened in 2011. During this entire time, as I mentioned to you earlier, I'm LVI trained. So I had got my fellowship in 2009. So I was very active on the forum, talking to a lot of doctors. And one thing became really evident for me, and that was simply the fact that, we are incorporated when we graduate, and we get our degrees, and our incorporation, meaning that you have to be a CEO, a CFO, a COO, and these are all things that we have no training in. And so to answer your question, when I moved into 2011 and started to now realize that I have to think like an entrepreneur, and I know a lot of dentists will think negative of that thought, but the reality is most of dentistry as a profession is dealing with people, dealing with leadership skills, dealing with management skills, dealing with financial skills. And it really has very little to do with actually cutting teeth. So by 2015, 16, I started having really great success. And I created a blueprint program. And I took that blueprint program to where it's kind of grown into today, which is SafarianMBA.com. And it's really just talking about us having the ability to get business training, which I believe is the key to success as a dentist.
So you graduated in 2001 from Tufts. When did you say you started your first office?
I started my first practice, it was a partnership practice in 2003, which I shouldn't have got involved in. I bought my first practice in 2005, private practice 2005, which I should not have bought. And then, you know, I'd made some real estate mistakes in 2005 and 6. And by 2008 is when the harsh reality of all my lack of discipline in my decision-making process hit me and hit me hard. So my ultimate dream and my ultimate goal in this model of giving back to the profession is to really try to get in the minds of the new graduates. And believe it or not, there are so many seasoned dentists that are making so many basic mistakes. You know, I mentioned to you that I'm traveling now and lecturing, and it's amazing how archaic some of our, if not the majority of the websites are today. And we just need to catch up to the times. As you know, that, you know, you've done this obviously for many years and you've seen how things have evolved. The phone right now and the internet right now is where you need to be. And many of these doctors still have websites that are 5 years old, that aren't maintained, that are broken, and that are outdated. And they have the common complaints of, I can't get any patients. And yet they're paying themselves $150,000, $200,000 a year on their W-2s, and they're complaining, I can't get any patients. You need to reinvest that money back into your business. But then you say that, and that's where they get stuck because they don't understand what that means.
Well, I couldn't agree more, phone internet. But I want to go back to the beginning of your journey, though. So you graduated in Tufts in 2001, and then you were an associate for a couple of years. In 2003, you became a partner with another guy, and that didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily that it didn't work out. It's just it was the natural evolution for me to want to have my own private practice and have full autonomy. In your years, I mean, you've been doing this 2 decades. I mean, do you really, I mean, half of all marriages fail and they involve a spouse, sex, and children. Do you think dental partnerships are more likely to work or not? How does a marriage to another dentist without sex and children and holidays, what do you think has a better success chance, a marriage or a partnership? It's very difficult because, you know, you have 2 A-type personalities many times that are clashing, right? And at some point, you have to have the ability to be a little bit more understanding, and many times that becomes really challenging. Our profession is tough, as you know. It's very physical. It's very demanding on the mind, and sometimes when your temperament is not properly stabilized, right, and you have to make some difficult decisions with your partners, that's when things can go south. And it really takes, you know, 10 seconds or 30 seconds of you saying something that can throw everything apart, just like marriages, right?
Yeah, and I've said this 1,000 times. I mean, you young kids in dental school, you don't realize you put 4 years undergrad, 4 years in dental school, you're $400,000 into this debt, and then you just go marry someone without a prenuptial agreement. And when I say that, you think, oh, you know, that's not romantic to have a prenuptial agreement. And well, if you become a partner, you better have a lawyer write up a contract, and you better have a very clearly defined exit strategy, because I can name you 100 dentists on Dental Town that say divorcing their dentist partner was more brutal than their divorce. and you know, I mean, it just is what it is. Either just live together. If you can't ask her to sign a prenuptial, then just live together. And you know, until you have a kid, then when you have a kid, now you need a 25-year plan.
Well, you said something very important. The exit strategy is very important, and that's something that needs to be defined during the partnership discussion. And many times we get so emotionally excited, and you know, greed gets in the way, and we start getting a little bit blind, right? And you forget that things can go south and you need to prepare for that. But I do believe one area that can have value if you're in a partnership is that you have a partnership that potentially is a little bit more distant, meaning that you don't work side by side on a daily basis. So if you have 2 offices or 3 offices and you're all scattered, that might make it a little bit easier in order to make a partnership work. I certainly haven't tried that. But that's the only thought that I have as we're kind of discussing that potentially could be easier where you're not seeing each other every day. And you're, you know, having your 1 or 2 hour meetings on a weekly basis. But still, you know, there's nothing more powerful than, you know, having your own thing and building your own thing. But with that said, you can certainly build a solid team. And that's, you know, obviously that's a different discussion too. But yeah, partnerships are not easy, man.
Are you a solo owner or do you have partners now?
I am solo owner. I have 3 practices at this time. I am restructuring a few things as we speak, and that's because I've gotten into this lecture circuit a little bit here the past year.
Are you married?
And I am married. I've been divorced. I got divorced in 2006, which was another, you know, big part of my earlier part of my career. But I am happily married. I have 2 little kids, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. Just turned 50 I'm going to be 51 in May. So having a blast being a dad, man.
Well, it even gets better. This weekend I was so lucky because Grandpa Howie finally had enough trust to have my grandkids spend the night with me. It's funny because I tell them, look, I made 4 kids and they're all alive. Why are you nervous about that? And they keep telling me all these things. Well, if Jasper does this, do that, and if he does this, it's like, look, I'm 56. I know how to babysit a kid. So again, your first advice was when you get out of school, you just need to get your hands speed up. You need to learn how to do fillings, crowns, cleanings, exams. You take a lot of CE. You need to get some skills. Then when you finally bought an office in 2005, 4 years out of school, what lessons did you learn there and could share with the kids?
The biggest thing I can tell you is, you know, don't get overly excited about the banks giving you $500,000 in loan. You really want to make sure that you understand that you don't need a lavish practice. $250,000, $300,000 max if you're starting from scratch is where you need to start your practice. Talking to a doctor right now, she's over $600,000 in her scratch practice. She's 10 years out, but still, that's a big number. So the biggest advice I can give you, which was a mistake I made in 2005, my first private practice, I bought it for $450,000, and I genuinely believe today, if I was to do it over again, I would open it for $300,000. So, you know, that's the best lesson I can give you. As much as you have money to spend, these are all loans, these are all interest rates, these are all money that you're going to have to pay back. The other advice I would give you is, you know, if you have the skill set to produce, you don't need 5 operatories and 4 associates and 20 team members. You don't need that kind of, I mean, look, again, like I said, I've been out and I've talked to doctors for the last 4 years pretty heavily. There's a strategy. These doctors, I mean, they want to do $2.5 million in net 8%. And that's a strategy. That's a business strategy that they have established for themselves. And I think that's just chaos. You know, the doctor who's doing $600,000 and netting 30% is a much smarter business owner. But, you know, he's working out of a small team, and the $2.5 million has got 25 team members. So you don't need to go big. You need to learn how to produce. which really gets into the mindset of management, leadership, creating a buying environment, knowing how to convert, getting quality patients in your practice. So, the recipe is wide, and, it's a big discussion, but if you know how to produce, look, I did $1 million out of 3 chairs, 1 assistant, 1 hygienist, 1 front office. Okay. And that was 2016, part of the year that I'd mentioned that I did really well, out of 1 office. So, and that's 3 chairs. Now my 3rd office, which I opened in 2017, has 1,000 square feet. I have 3 operatories, and I'm happy because rent is very inexpensive. So you don't need 2,500 square feet, and you don't need a $700,000 or $600,000 loan on top of your $500,000 loan. That puts a lot of strain on your marriage, by the way, too. So,
yeah, I mean, marriages dissolve over a third, money, sex, and substance abuse, and with all 3 of those subjects, it's just communication. But yeah, when you are arguing about money, it's tough. But when you talk about learn how to produce 3 chairs, I was lecturing in one of the local dental schools. This kid came up to me and I said, well, what's your goal when you get out of school? And he says, I want to have 4 offices. I thought, what a bizarre goal. 4. So you don't want 1 mortgage. You want 4 mortgages, 4 electric bills, 4 tax. And then he said, I said, well, where do you get that number? And he goes, well, I think each office could do $1 million. And then if I had 4 offices, I'd be doing $4 million. I said, dude, I know I can name you several offices in small, nobody, nothing towns that do $4 million in 1 office. So where do you, but how does a kid learn how to produce?
Well, you have to take CE credits, but to be honest, a lot of that has to do, and I know this sounds kind of cliche-ish, but we hear when we get out into the real world, we hear about building relationships, creating trust and value. And that's one of the challenges. And that's why I strongly believe that professionals today need a mentor, they need a coach. This is where we lack. We are science majors. We are scholastically very advanced, but potentially a lot of these doctors and new grads that are graduating, they've never really had to solidify any relationship with people that are exchanging money with them. And that's the challenge. So first and foremost, I think it's your ability to connect with people is very important, because you can be clinically very sound, but if you keep getting people that say no to you, you're not going to get the production that you want. So that's first and foremost. But along the way, I mean, even 2007, 8, 9, when I was struggling, I borrowed money to take courses at LVI, and that's not cheap there. So you got to have that self-confidence that you need to continue to press on and learn. And have that ability to produce. I mean, if you can do 8-unit cosmetic cases in 2 hours prep, 2 hours delivery, that'll put you in a very good position financially rather quickly. And you need to have the skill set to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, borrowing money is the easy part. Paying it back is the hard part. And people are so honored that someone's going to give them other people's money. And it's like, well, why do they want to give you other people's money? Because they're depositing it, they're paying the depositor 5%, they're loaning it to you for 10%, they're making the spread. And dentists have an incredibly low default rate of less than 0.4% when they buy a practice. So yeah, you come out of school.
People love lending us money.
Yeah, and you
love lending us money.
And so many people spend their whole life just working to pay interest on the use of other people's money. And it's just amazing how many dentists I meet that are 50, 60, 70 years old, and they're still paying interest on other people's money instead of earning interest on their own money. So it's an incredible disease. I mean, look at the average American. As soon as they make their last car payment, what do? They go trade it in and then get a new 5-year loan. It's like you finally had a car that was paid for, and you still had to go back and use other people's money. So that's tough. So
yeah,
You mentioned LVI. I'm sure Bill Dickerson would love it if you expanded on that. He was on the show. Why did you like LVI enough to go borrow money for that?
Well, and this is a personal thing that I did in 2004. I learned about airway, and Jim Gray, I was listening in to one of his lectures at LVI, and it literally just gave me goosebumps about how it connected so well with me. So the education I got at LVI, and Bill, I tell him this all the time, he's a mentor of mine, and I know there's these occlusion camps and, the politics involved, which I could care less about. LVI created an environment for me to, get really high level training. And the difficulty that we have with dentistry is a lot of dentists don't want to spend the $3,500 and invest in themselves. But with that said, I took a lot of courses at LVI from 2004 to 2010. I still take some courses. I'm certainly not as active as I used to be going out there. But with that said, I think any new grad has to realize that dental school is not enough for you as far as getting the proper training to do high quality dentistry.
So I
predictable.
I got to give a shout out to Bill because when you go, I got out in '87, and that was pretty much the launch of the cosmetic revolution, where everybody one day, we had gold crowns, silver fillings, and these porcelain diffused metal, and it was really just about a handful of people that launched it. Number one, it was $1 billion company Ivoclar, privately held, and the CEO of Ivoclar, Robert Ganley, he really helped Bill Dickerson. Bill Dickerson was an amazing leader in that revolution. And then you had Bill Dorfman. And by the way, Bill Dorfman and Bill Dickerson both went to University of California, San Francisco. Bill Dorfman hit the airways with the TV show. So you had the TVs doing all these smile makeovers, and Bill Dorfman was just a legend with the consumers. Dickerson, with a lot of help from the technology of Ivoclar, launched the whole deal. And I credit those three. That was probably the triangle of people, Ganley, Dickerson, and Dorfman. That just, my God, that was a big ride for 10 years. Everybody just wanted to take out those ugly silver fillings that last 38 years and are antibacterial and replace them with cheap inert plastic that the Streptococcus mutans can eat under all day long with no fear of some toxic metal ion killing them and their offspring.
Yeah, I don't know Dorfman as well. I've met him a couple of times, but certainly, the recommendation really is find a mentor coming out on the clinical side, and LVI certainly provided that for me because, you have a lot of questions. Look, the truth is this. The truth is, dental school, you learn how to work on teeth, but you're not a doctor of the oral cavity. And I think LVI helps you get a much better vision of the oral cavity as a system, as opposed to just working on teeth.
So when you got out of school and you were having problems, did you ever, how many times did you think you should have stayed with soccer? I mean, you played soccer in college, you played professional soccer for the San Diego Sockers. Did you ever sit there and think, why am I a dentist? I should be in the World Cup?
What's so funny? I was making about $2,500 to $3,000. This is pre-MLS, and I had no debt. And I graduate dental school with a doctorate degree, and I'm $400,000 in debt. And I'm like, wait a minute, where did I go wrong here, right? Look, the lifestyle of living as a soccer player, obviously in the early 90s, was not the most glamorous. But to be honest, I would have done it for nothing. I just loved it. It was a blast. It was a great time. But I also realized that there was an end to it. And I had to go on, and I was fortunate to make some wise decisions, which were very difficult at the time because, when you're playing pro sports, you got to pay your dues for 2-3 years, and I had already done that. So I was ready to go into my prime, and then I left. So I was supposed to play pro sports for 15 years, and now here I am as a dentist.
I love the World Cup, and you know how I got turned on to the World Cup, being born in Kansas, where it's just football and basketball and wrestling, was when I was lecturing around the world, and during World Cup season, I got to watch one game in France, which makes the most excited sports fans and Americans aren't even close to a bar in France watching a soccer game. And then I was lecturing in Africa, in a country that had a team in the World Cup, and I was at the hotel bar watching this African team, and oh my gosh, I mean,
you the flavor.
Oh my! I've been addicted to it ever since. But do you think soccer will ever be as big in the United States as it is in the entire rest of every country on earth?
Well, I tell you what, they just celebrated David Beckham's retirement with the LA Galaxy yesterday, and they give him a statue outside of the stadium. It's come a long ways since I played. There's a lot more money in it today. There are actual millionaires playing pro sports, pro soccer here in the U.S., which didn't exist in the early 90s. So, and there's multi-millionaires that are playing pro soccer here in the U.S. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it'll ever be, the English Premier League or the Bundesliga or any of those types of leagues, but certainly will tell you it's much better than the Mexican league that is just south of us. I'd much more enjoy watching the MLS over the Mexican league. And there's certainly some other leagues in the European ranks that I'd watch MLS over, because they have a lot of the European players here. You got Zlatan here now with LA. You got Rooney in DC now playing. So there's certainly some of the European players. They're out of their prime, but hey, you know what? They're coming out, and they're enjoying their MLS careers.
Well,
and I think Beckham was one that brought that on.
This talking soccer actually is dental, because the only reason soccer is a number one sport around the world is for the same reason Southwest Airlines is the number one carrier in America with 27% of the sea miles, because they're the lowest cost. For soccer, I just need a ball and a field, as opposed to if you want to roll out ice hockey around the world and these people have to build $1 million ice rinks. It's not going to happen. The only problem with soccer is that the concussion thing is the same, because they use their head, and I don't think you're ever going to be able to tell the world, okay, we got to change a rule in soccer. You can no longer use your head. Use your hands instead. I mean, it's funny how the concussion problem in the NFL is huge. And soccer is, I watched a deal on it on HBO Sports, and they have the same problem. These guys that were using their head for 10 years are paying huge consequences. But back to lower cost. You're in California. There's basically only two business models in dentistry. It's either high volume, low fees, Medicaid, Medicare, PPOs, or it's low volume, high fees. Soccer's the number one sport because it's the lowest cost sport, and hockey and downhill racing on skiing is the least popular sport because they're so darn expensive. So would you tell this dentist to go low fee soccer, Southwest Airlines, high volume PPO, or would you switch them to low volume, high fee?
Yeah, so with PPO, as you know, it's contracted fees. I think where we miss the mark is in our treatment planning. What you need to really understand is what you believe is the best in dentistry. If you still have silver fillings in your mouth, then how can you provide the best dentistry to your patients? If you believe that your class 2 or class 3 composite fillings that are better than indirect restorations, then how are you going to promote indirect restorations in your treatment planning? So a lot of that has to do with the belief system that you have on what you think is the best in the patient's mouth. The challenge with that also is, Howard, is that, it's easy to just do the PPO 2 or 3 surface fillings, because you don't really have to build a relationship with the patient. It's easy, it's low end, cost out of the patient's pocket, and you become a $2,500 producing doctor just doing fillings all day. So that's where the secret sauce is that ability for you to connect with your patient and your ability to treatment plan. And if you're able to do that, there's a market, no matter whether you're in California or anywhere in the country. I strongly believe that there's a market for this type of dentistry where you're doing quadrant dentistry, but it's a higher end producing quadrant dentistry field, and you're seeing less patients.
And everybody that I see successful like yourself, the one thing they all had in common, it wasn't whether they placed implants or didn't. It wasn't. The only thing they had in common is they consistently took a lot of continuing education. I go back 31 years in Phoenix, and the reason I joined the AGD is because I knew from CE that all those people that had their FAGD and MAGD, they were all crushing it. I mean, I observed that straight out of school and set my sights on to get that. And it was always the same people at all the courses. I mean, here's Phoenix with a town of, 4 million people metro, 3,600 dentists in the metro, but it was always the same 100 dentists at all these courses. And they all found one thing. I call it, my dad owned restaurants. And the success of a restaurant, it's got to have that one thing. You're only going to crave this one thing. Is it the guacamole dip? Is it the chips? Is it the whatever? And all those dentists, they all got that one thing, and they got it because they took 100 hours of CE every year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. They just never stopped doing it.
Yeah, that's very important. There's no doubt that CE is key. But here's the challenge: is I look at these practices and I go into the financial numbers of these practices. These practices, in many occasions, are very inefficient in how they manage their bottom line. So yes, CE does help. You will have the ability to produce, but there's a lot of money leaking out on the back end because you're not managing things properly. You need to understand your financial numbers. So yes, as much as CE is important, as much as doing quadrant dentistry, high-end quadrant dentistry and converting cases is important, you also have to understand that you need to put the same amount of energy and time in managing your office. And this is where we lack our skill set. And this is why I said right at the beginning is that, we are supposed to be CFOs and COOs of our practices and our businesses, but we fail, and we're short in making sure that our overhead is paid attention. Some of these doctors, their payroll is 35, 40%, and they don't even know it. They're making daily business decisions, not understanding their financial numbers, and they're just getting themselves in a worse situation. With that said, their escape is always just to produce on the front end. But how much can you produce on the front end if you're 85% on your receivables, on your collections to production, for example, and you're running a 30, 35% payroll? You've got to understand your financials. So as much time that you're putting into your CE and getting clinically trained, you need to take management courses, leadership courses, marketing courses. You need to know how to run an operation. I think that's where corporate America has really come in very nicely and got a big chunk of the market, is because they understand that they need to, this is where it becomes attractive for the doctor, right? The doctor's like, I'm done with this management. Let me just give it to somebody else to deal with it, right? But why? You give away so much to do that.
So I was saying that the thing I saw in common with them all is they took 100 hours of CE a year, and you're saying it needs to be in business too. And I see the same thing. You and I both got our MBA. Talk about your MBA journey.
Yeah, so to be honest, I got my MBA with the soccer scholarship in college. So I just wanted to play soccer, and I had 1 year of eligibility remaining. So I said, all right, well, screw it. I want to stay in school and play soccer. So I went and got my MBA. So that was my thought process on getting my MBA. But you know what? Even when you get your MBA degree, certainly you have more of a business mindset. But there's a practicality to everything. How do I have an MBA and still be so greedy and want to buy real estate with putting 5% down? There's still emotions and greed and the real world attached to that. And just because you have an MBA doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have financial success, because there's so many other parts to it. But through the school of hard knocks, right, you learn that you need to have business discipline, and a lot of that has to do with understanding your financials.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason DSOs are so successful, is because it is so hard just to learn how to do the dentistry, that these dentists, they don't do the CEO part or the CFO part or the COO part, and those terms, a CEO, the chief executive officer, they don't know their numbers. You were saying you see people with 35% labor and don't even know it. What I see is even worse, is you'll be at dinner with four drunk dentists and they're saying, oh, my labor is 20%. You just ask one question. Does that include FICA matching? Does that include healthcare? What does that number include? And it's deer in the headlights. They don't even know. And then if you go in there and do find those numbers in your buddy's office, you find out it wasn't 28%, it was 29%. Or 30%, and it's just it's crazy. So what does your program do to teach them how to be a CEO, a COO, a CFO?
Yeah, you know what, Howard, the biggest thing is, and I think this has to be customized to every individual, because we all have a value system that's different. Our temperament is different. Our belief system and what we feel will make us internally happy is different. There's some doctors that will be internally happy with their careers doing $90,000 a year. And there's some doctors that are doing $90,000 and want to do $400,000 a year. And so the first thing is I want to get to know the doctor. I want to get to know them at a level where I understand their self-awareness, meaning I want to know what they want out of their career. And to be honest, many times they've never been challenged with that question of what will make me internally happy. So that's the first thing, is to understand what they want. And then we dig into the business. We dig into their personal life. Why do you have 5,000 square feet home where you don't see 1,500 square feet of it? Why do you have a 3,000 square foot practice where you don't use 2 of the operatories? So we talk about efficiency, and downsizing as a possibility. And then obviously we look at the financial numbers, and boy, I tell you what, every financial number that I've looked at, had a doctor doing $4.5 million of business. He nets 400,000. So 400,000 is a great number, but that's 10% of 4.5 million, right? He had $700 in his bank account at New Year's Eve. So what's going on with these decision making? These are seasoned dentists. These are not new graduates. So I go in there and I say, look, let's buckle down, and it takes time. These are not quick resolutions. These are not quick decisions. A lot of times these doctors, where they hire these consultants, they get disappointed at the end, because at the end of the day, we don't hold them accountable for the changes. And that's where I really go in and I said, look, first and foremost, you got to be accountable for this. Otherwise, it's going to be a failure in 6 months to 12 months. So just keep your money, right? So it's really going into the heart of the doctor and really making them realize that they got to stop thinking like dentists.
Now, your dad was a physician. Are you, do you think what you observe now in California, was it better for you to become a dentist? Do you wish you would have become a physician like your father? How do you go back historically and look at that decision?
I came to the U.S. as an immigrant in 1978. As I mentioned, I'm 50 now, and my dad was in his 40s. He's 85 now, still alive, and very healthy, knock on wood. So he came in with a different mindset. He came in basically as a foreign doctor, learning how to, acclimate to the American society. So it's difficult to use him as an example, because I think the American doctor has a little different viewpoint at how and what my father experienced being an immigrant himself. But to answer your question, there's a private sector in any profession. I strongly and truly believe that. Look at plastic surgeons, look at dermatologists. And I strongly believe that there's a private sector that wants high quality dentistry. So I don't believe that the capitation HMO world is for everybody. And it depends on what kind of dentist you want to be. If you want to be hands off and just get a check every 2 weeks, then maybe that's the route you want to go. But, I strongly believe, at least in our profession today, that you're going to be challenged many times with the passion of why you got involved with dentistry, and that's autonomy many times in owning your own business. But corporate America's come in, and as you know, and you've interviewed a lot of the leaders in corporate dentistry. I saw that you interviewed the CEO of Heartland, and they had over 900 offices. So there's a reason why they're having tremendous success. And to be honest, that's the difficulty right now, is a lot of these new grads are graduating with heavy loans, and it almost is the only answer, to be honest.
Back to your 7-figure dental practice blueprint. What you're saying is there's no cookie cutter approach for the incoming dentist calls. They all have different. I love when you said self-awareness. That's something. The biggest advice I can give you on self-awareness is, I can't believe it took me half a century, but you have that little intuition, that bird on your shoulder that says, don't say that, or don't. I always thought I was so smart. I was always arguing with the birdie on my shoulder. It took me half a century to realize, dude, that birdie's in your own brain. Your own brain's telling you, don't do this, don't do that. So the level of self-awareness is so important.
You know what, Howard? Let me expand on that a little bit. The best way you can have self-awareness is be honest with yourself. It's the number one thing that you need to do, is to be honest with yourself. Hold yourself accountable with the thoughts that you have in your mind. Hold yourself accountable for what comes out of your mouth. Okay? Very, very important. And if you're able to accomplish that, that's the first step in change, right? And that's the most difficult part, is because it's always easy just to do what we've been doing all along. And these are things that we don't have training in. I mean, does your bio degree help you with that? Does your DMD degree help you with that? And to your point, we go through a lot of our career chasing money, right? And we never get into what really internally triggers us to be happy. And that's why a lot of dentists, I believe, that are seasoned have lost passion, and they're just kind of going through the motion. And that's tough. So,
what do you think? Do you think burnout is a normal amount in dentistry compared to nursing, policemen, firemen, et cetera, or do you think dentists have more of it?
Let me tell you, Howard. I've done over 120 videos on Facebook, so I have a lot of content out, and I just did a video on burnout yesterday. Okay, and let me explain to you my thought process there. If you have found your purpose, and if you are passion driven in what you do, there is no burnout, period. There is no burnout. The challenge is we struggle through our day. We struggle through our careers because we don't know what internally will make us happy. Many of us are chasing things that are not what we want. And that's the biggest challenge, is that, hey, you know what? Maybe your $2 million practice becomes $1 million practice, but internally you're much more happier because you're enjoying the process. And that is where the value is. So burnout, I don't think there's burnout. I work about 70, 80 hours a week. I work Saturdays and Sundays. I don't believe in burnout. I'll burn out when I'm 85. But I don't want to be 85 years old and have regrets.
So you said something at the beginning very profound, that right now you need to be really focused on the internet and the phones. Go back and explain that. What do you think dentists are? You talked about the websites. I'm one of those guys where when you send me an email at howard@dentaltown.com, if you said your name is Safarian MBA.com, I would go to MBA.com. I would take your first name in the ad off and go back and I check their website. I cannot believe how pathetic the websites are. Or a dentist will send me a link or an email, and his name's John Smith. So I just take John Smith, drop it in Google, see where this guy lives, and found out, yeah, this is the guy. He lives in Iowa. And his Google isn't even attached to his office website. And then I put in the guy's full name and the city and state he lives in, drop that in Google, and then it only takes me to his Facebook page. And his Facebook page doesn't even have, it's complete.
Well, let me tell you, Howard.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked 5 times a day. Send me an email at howardfriend.com and I'll reply back to you and abuse you on your website. Just kidding. But what are your thoughts on their internet savvy?
It comes down to, we're trained to work in our practice, and we're not trained to work on our practice. Okay. And I think 90% of what we do on a daily basis and a weekly, monthly basis to run a business is our energy and time that we need to put on working on our practice and on our business. Right. And so that's the challenge. So challenge number one is if you're more productive throughout your day, where you have the capability to produce $30,000 in 4 hours. I know there's doctors doing that, right? Instead of $2,500 a day, that will give you more energy and time to work on your business. Once you start working on your business, you have to understand that you got to take the training needed to understand today's world. One of the most difficult things that we don't have the skill set to do, see, we're not very creative people, let's face it. Cutting a crown is not creative, right? Placing a dental implant is not creative. Doing a root canal, there's no creativity to it. It's very redundant work and it's repetitive. So you have to be creative owning a business. That means you have to have the dynamics to pivot when the times have changed. And in the last 5 to 10 years, the times have changed. But yet we're still doing the same things, which is just working in our practice. So learn how to produce will give you the leverage and the power of time to work on your business. Once you have the ability to work on your business, then you need to take the proper courses so you can hold the systems accountable in your place of business. See, when we talk about, okay, it's Friday, I'm going to go work on my business, and you don't even know what that means. Working on your business means you're going to go look at a CT scan, or you're going to go treatment plan a surgical scan. That's not working on your business. Okay? So that's first and foremost, is we don't know what we need to do to work on our business. And that's what 7-Figure Dental Practice does, and that's what I do, is I come in and I challenge you on the things you need to set in your place of business, i.e. one of them being a website, right? That's working as one of the pillars to solidifying systems in your place of business. We don't know how to create a buying environment. We come in with, crappy attitudes all the time. Our shoulders are drooped. Our words that come out of our mouth are all negative energy, right? So what happens to your office manager and to your hygienist and to your RDA that the patient is seeing on a daily, weekly basis as they come into your place of business? This is working on your business. Positive energy, positive attitude, passion driven. Why do you have to come to your place of work with eggshells, walking on eggshells? Why? Because you've created an environment where you haven't led properly. You've hired incorrectly. And you've, for whatever reason, have put yourself in a position where you're nervous about losing your office manager or your hygienist because they're the superstars in your practice. So, talking about the website and the internet, look, the phone today is where the game is. Okay, so what you need to do, and with the phone, there's 2 areas that I spend a lot of time and energy on, which is Facebook and Instagram. Facebook ads and Instagram stories. Not Facebook ads, Facebook boost to get attention. There's other ways that you can market to get the phone to ring, but you need to have attention in your place of business. You tell me, print magazine, okay? I don't care what print magazine you're gonna, and I can't screen share with you, but I got 35,000 people that I reached in my community for $500 last month in February on Facebook. 35,000 for $500. Okay, that's on Facebook. You got to get attention. Facebook is branding. Don't try to create. See, look, there's some things that are negative. There's good profit and bad profit, right? Having a $29 exam x-ray cleaning, I'll give you, bleaching for life on your Facebook ad, that's bad profit. That's not good profit. So you have to understand the distinction between good and bad profit. And then you have that patient that's in your office for $29 or $39 or $49 that gets everything. Then they want a copy of their exam or x-rays, and you say it's $25. right? That's poor management. Why? How is $25 going to benefit you? Then you get a new patient that's transferring from another office, and you as the business owner are saying, I need the x-rays in order to be able to do this. That's not customer service. Just come in and do the x-rays. Don't charge the patient. Why do you have to wait a week to 10 days to get the x-rays from another office? So what? Is your game to get the $50 production on the x-rays? Or is your game to get the $3,000 for quadrant dentistry?
So you were starting to say on Facebook you reached 35,000 for 500. Is that what you said?
That's right. So what you do, and this is what I do.
And then you started to say something about print magazine, then you stopped.
Yeah, so that's more of a traditional mindset, right? TV, radio, print, mailers. This is not going to give you the reach that Facebook will give you today. Instagram has over 400 million people that are on Instagram, and that's growing tremendously. Facebook is about 2 billion people. There are people in your community that are searching and looking for dentists. It's a great avenue. So here's what I do. I go on video, okay? And then I boost the videos. I take that video, I upload it on YouTube. This is all January, February 2019 stuff. I still even haven't started the Instagram stories, but this is what's happening for me right now. Then what I do, it's just vlogging. Vlogging as in V as in Victor, vlogging, not blogging, right? Because what that does is it creates organic traffic for your website. Organic traffic means that somebody's coming on your website and is spending time on your website. People today want to look at you on video. Okay, now, what's the first thing that 98% of dentists are going to think right now as I say that? I'm never going on video, right? I'm never going on video. And that's a mistake. In today's world, you got to go on video. That's the game you need to play.
Why do you think they don't want to be on video?
Well, because they're shy. They're introverted. They have nothing. Yeah, they're shy. They're introverted. They have nothing to say. They're embarrassed. They don't want to open up. I mean, we're all kind of introverted people, right? We're anal. The margins got to be perfect, right? And that's not the real world. People want to connect with you. So today you got to get on video. It's one of the things I talk about on the marketing side, right? And I think that's tremendous value. Now, with that said, if you don't want to go on video, what you can do is you can create videos for your patients. Now, don't tell me you don't want to go on video for your monthly newsletters. That's to your own patients that you've seen in your own practice. Go on video. Instead of just putting the traditional newsletters with a bunch of content, go on video for 5 minutes, 10 minutes a month. Talk about what you're doing. Talk about what your direction is. Talk about what works for you as far as, CE credits or hobbies or what you did with your family. Bring in your kids into your newsletters. What's wrong with that? Right? So that's one of the big pushes in 2019. Now, in 2-3 years, maybe 5 years, Facebook and Instagram might not be the game. But today, it's very cheap attention. And as a business owner, you need to pay attention to that.
Okay, just for the older guys on the show, about once a month, someone as old as me will email me, howard@dentaltown.com. Usually they're emailing me from either a diabetic clinic or an ED clinic, and they're watching. But what is the difference between Facebook and Instagram in your mind for a dental office? I mean, is Instagram younger, so an orthodontist would want to do there? I know you do ortho, or is who cares where the kid is? The mom's paying for it. Would you rather be on Facebook? Just tell me what's the difference between Facebook and Instagram?
Yeah, so Instagram is definitely a little bit more of a younger crowd. But Facebook and Instagram are connected. So you can do a Facebook boost and have it on Instagram. Okay? And again, this is very new stuff that I'm doing as well, but here's the trick. A lot of doctors that are doing it, and they're a little bit more of the younger crowds, right? They're trying to do it themselves. Don't do that. Don't try to save a little bit of that money up front. Hire the experts, build that relationship with the experts, because at the end of the day, what I want you to do is I want you to do high-end production with Quadrant Dentistry in your practice. And some of these services need to be allocated. But to answer your question, the biggest difference is for the older crowd, Facebook, okay, has a much better traction as far as the community is concerned. Instagram is for a little bit of a younger crowd.
Now, on your website, Safarian MBA, you show a dental marketing service for $297 a month. Talk about that. So you're telling the dentist, take CE on dentistry and outsource your social media marketing on Facebook and Instagram to you for $297 a month.
Well, in essence, yes and no. What I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to create a dental community. Okay, and the community that we're trying to create has multiple channels attached to it. For example, we're currently working on a consumer program for cosmetic dentistry. I've connected with a lab out of Vegas called Las Vegas Aesthetics Dental Lab. And what we're working on, which is a website that's launching in April, is that we're going to go after the consumer, and we've put videos and pictures together, and it's a really exciting time for us. As a member of that program, we're going to help you to get cosmetic training for yourself and your team for free. And it also puts you as a provider on this website where we're going to get consumers coming on looking for a cosmetic dentist, whether it's a single tooth veneer on number 8 or 9, or you want a smile design or full mouth rehab. And we go through the process of trying to help you get the proper training to do that. That's one area where the $297 becomes valuable. They will get access to me for about an hour a month for the $297. We also, if you look at the website, if you go down at the bottom, we have a list of partners that we partnered with over the last year, and we're growing our partnerships with ClearCorrect, with a few other companies as well, with Straumann, for example, that's coming in. And, you know, I've been hired, as I mentioned to you earlier, as I'm speaking nationally, I've been hired by the Straumann Group to travel and lecture on practice management with doctors, to doctors, whether you're an associate, whether you're corporate, or whether you are a business owner. The ultimate goal of the $297, Howard, is to give you a return that's 5, 8, 10, 15 to 1 on the $297, and all these different programs that we're creating, talking about reduction of overhead. We have accountants that are part of the program that come in at a very reasonable rate, help you get financial control. So that's the ultimate goal with the membership site, is to build a community where we can help you get proper business training, proper mentorship, and proper coaching in order to run your businesses better.
So who's the owner of the Las Vegas Aesthetics Dental Laboratory in Las Vegas? Who owns that?
Ray Foster. They actually sponsored LVI for 12 years, from about 98 to 2009, 2010. Ray Foster, James Dodge, and Jin Garcia are 3 owners of that business. And once the website goes live, the URL is theperfectsmileclub.com. And we're actively working on building that. Like I said, it's going to go live in about a month to month and a half.
Perfectsmileclub.com.
The perfectsmileclub.com. It's still not live. We're working on developing the website. But the members basically become providers. As a provider, you go on this national directory, where what we're going to do is create marketing programs for the consumer to come on and basically look for doctors that are well-trained. Look, the reality is this, 50%, and this is one of the things that doctors have to give credit, 50 to 60% of the cosmetic cases that are done properly in patients' mouths is based on the lab's training, right? The lab has to make you look good. It's the veneers, the line angles, the symmetry, the all of those things that play a huge role in your patients being happy with the end result. So you have to be working with a very highly skilled lab in Las Vegas Aesthetics. And me and myself and my practice have been working together now for over a year, roughly now, maybe about a year.
So it's Ray Foster. Who are the other 2 partners?
James Dodge and Jen Garcia.
And James Garcia or Jim?
Jen, it's Y-I-N Garcia. It's kind of spelled a little bit different.
How's it spelled?
Y-I-N.
Y-I-N, Yen Garcia. So Ray Foster, James Dodge, and Yen Garcia?
Correct.
Well, send them on the show. That'd be kind of fun to have. We can do the Brady Bunch thing. All three of them could be on, and then I'll be the fourth. And then when everyone's talking, I'll look up or look to the left or look to the right.
What we could do is once the website goes live, if you're open to it in 2-3 months, let's all get on again and talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. A lab is everything. I want to say one thing that I've learned from 31 years. Like say you want to get into implants. The guy who wants to buy the implants for $99 from some dental implant company, or there's about 400 around the world. Those aren't I don't see those guys crushing it. Everybody I see crushing it in implants has a rep. Everybody I see crushing it in business got their MBA or learned their numbers. So having and Straumann, we had Marco on the show. He's the president and CEO of Straumann. They're the largest implant company in the world. It's an incredible company. But again, having a human relation with your implant company or your dental laboratory is everything. I remember when I went on my dental lab, I was using a guy, and he was an old German man. And my gosh, I called him up and I said, hey, is my work really good? I went to University of Missouri. Bah. And there was this big pause. And he said, would you be interested in coming down here? And I went down there. And he took me under his wing and he showed me all the preps and told me which dentists were crushing it and which ones don't even care. And he really motivated me because he said, just the fact that you care. Already up in the 10%. I remember I went to a removable partials lab in Nogales. It's I think it's the largest removable partials lab I've ever seen. They do 1,000 removable partials a day in Nogales. They're shipped to Nogales, Arizona, then they drive them in a car across to a lab. 95% of all the prescriptions coming in for a lower partial just said lower partial. They didn't ask for any design, so just the fact that you care. But yeah, I want the lab man to be on there because I think especially the young kids need a relationship with a lab person because they don't know what they don't know. And then if you're older, if you've been doing it 10, 20, 30 years, you take 100 hours a year, then you have to have this relationship because you're doing really complex stuff. I can't believe we went over an hour. And that's our brand. But I want to end with this. They're coming out of school and you say they need to get their feet wet. They need to do, if you're learning football, you need to learn how to do a block, a tackle, a catch, a pass. You need to learn how to do fillings, crowns, whatever. But when they're taking CE, continuing education, are some things better for return on investment than others? Like, would you say learn how to place implants, learn how to do ortho Invisalign, sleep apnea, molar endo, they got all these institutes. You got Ross Nash. Should she go sign up for Ross Nash? Should she do the Pankey Institute? Should she do Spear, Coyce? She sees 20 different things. She wants to do them all, but time and money says she can do one at a time. Where would you tell her to go first?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you're into surgery, then obviously I would say go into dental implants. If you want to stay outside of the mouth and not get patients numb and not cut teeth, then I would say sleep apnea and orthodontics. And if you want to, really get excited about some artistic dentistry and do your best in changing people's lives and changing people's smiles, then I would say cosmetic dentistry. And this, again, is that self-awareness discussion. A lot of times we get ourselves stuck into situations where, I've met doctors that have taken ortho courses for 10 years, haven't placed a bracket yet in a patient's mouth in their practice. I've had doctors that have been getting all this, dental implant training and have bought all the hand pieces and the CBCTs, and they haven't placed an implant in somebody's mouth yet. So you gotta really, before you get into all this, you gotta really just sit down and understand yourself and what will work for you. Now, the difficult part is how do you really know if you haven't done it yet, right? But you have to have that understanding of what's going to work best for you. But certainly I love doing cosmetic dentistry and orthodontics. Those are the things that I'm currently focused on at this time. So obviously I'll have a bias in answering to say get involved with orthodontics and cosmetics.
Yeah, that's another thing I agree with completely. When I look at all my friends who are crushing it, they all fell passionately in love with some one thing. So I would say follow your passion. I mean, if all you want to be is a cosmetic dentist, go see Ross Nash. I mean, he's doing it. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah. You're saying, well, it's easy for Ross because he's so handsome with that bald head and all. But, some people, one of my friends here in Phoenix goes to an implant course probably every other week, and he doesn't care if it's in Scottsdale, New York, Miami, Europe. I mean, he's gone to Europe several times, but the main reason was to see an implant guy. So falling in love with something is amazing. But here's the biggest ROI. You talk about him buying $100,000 CBCTs and don't use them. The guy that owned Heartland says, they own 100 CAD cams and 80% of them are coat racks when they bought offices. But they don't blink on spending $140,000 for a CAD cam. But your entrepreneur consulting is $1,500 a month, which is only $18,000 a year. What's the chance that if they paid you $1,500 a month, that they would not net $1,500 a month more in their office that month? What do you think the odds are?
Zero.
I know.
Look, and you know what? Let me tell you, Howard, this is why a lot of this is just giving back, to be honest. 18,000 is a very ridiculous number. And if you look at some of the things that I've done for some of the doctors in the past couple of years, we've doubled the business in a period of 6 to 9 months. One of the testimonials was they improved 35% on their business. If you listen to one thing I tell you, okay, and that's just improve your financial numbers, that in itself is going to give you a 3-to-1 return easily on your place of business. So, but the challenge is we don't have the discipline to follow through on things. We get excited, and then come Tuesday, Wednesday, we go back to doing what we do. And that's why I think having a coach and a mentor like myself is very beneficial, because I'm going to push you through to make sure you get it done. That's the difference.
And I want to say one other thing. You keep talking about the importance of having a coach or a mentor, yet you go on Dental Town and all the dental students that just graduated from dental kindergarten class are all saying, well, I'm going back to Parsons, Kansas, and there's two dentists advertising for an associate. One will pay me 30%, but I have to pay half the lab bill. The other one will pay me 25%, but I have to split the lab bill. Which one would you recommend? It's like, okay, first of all, that's like saying, is he a Taurus or a Virgo or a Gemini? I mean, what is the reason you want to work for this dentist? What mentorship is this lady going to offer you? And I would be more concerned. I would rather take an associate job for 20% of collection than 30% of collection if one was going to be my idol and role model and mentor and get this ship off the ground. And a lot of people, and then I'll say another thing, a lot of people go about, when I'm in dental schools, it seems like a quarter to a third have a blood relative in dentistry. So they just think that's a knee-jerk reaction. Well, I'm going to go back home and work with my mom. Okay, so she was your mom. Is this a good idea? Is she your mentor? Does she have the practice you want to be? Oh no, she's old school. She doesn't do blah, blah. And I say, well, maybe you should go work as an associate for someone else. I mean, you live with your mom for 18 years. Would you pick an associate just because she was your mom?
Well, no. And many times that's not what you want. You want to kind of branch out on your own. But let me touch on this, because if you don't know how to produce, what's 25% or 30%? You still don't know how to produce, right? So it's not about the 25 or 30%. In the big picture, that has no meaning. Right? It's the process. Are you going to enjoy the process? Are you going to enjoy the office? Are they going to give you the ability for you to grow in your career? Right? A lot of associateships are the business owner not giving all the high-end stuff to the associate, right? And they're doing all the high-end stuff, so they get all the dirty stuff, right? All the filling. So they don't have the capability to produce over $2,000-$3,000 a day because they're not given that potential. Or are you in an environment where you see your own patients? You have the ability to do your own exams. Do you have the ability to convert your own cases? Right?
Right.
So you really have to understand, it's not the 25 or 30%. walk into that place of business and talk to the owner. What opportunities do I have to learn and to grow in my career? That's what you want more than anything else. Because who cares about 30% if you learn nothing in 3 years?
Yeah, and your practice, your deal is called seven figure, which means seven figure is anything over 7 digits, 1 million all the way to 9,999,000. And so
that's right.
So basically, you're for $1,500 a month. What do you think the odds are that you can coach them to $1 million practice?
It's the mindset. What I want to do is I want to work on the mindset of the business owner and the dentist. And look, if you have $1 million practice and you're netting 5%, so what? If you have a $3 million practice and you're netting 25, 30%, now that's a game changer for you. Okay. So one step for us is to obviously get you to that $1 million, right, as a goal. So we talk about, private coaching as far as just, I get some doctors that send me their treatment plan, their models, their photos, and we sit down for an hour or two and break down the treatment plan. My treatment plan compared to their treatment plan. I had a doctor who came to me and said, look, let me give you a quick example, Howard. I had a doctor that came to me and said, this patient went and got a treatment plan for $60,000. He doesn't want to spend $60,000, okay? And I gave him a treatment plan for a little over $40,000 with first molar occlusion. What's wrong with first molar occlusion? And he told me, he's like, hey, I never even thought about that. I always wanted to build a second molar occlusion. And all those second molars were implants. You with me? So now you put yourself in 24 teeth, still can function very well, and you're making it affordable for the patient to come to your practice and convert, and everybody's happy. These are things that, I think sometimes my eyes and having a different eye helps in that process. But certainly at $1,500 consulting, I mean, you're convincing me I should increase my fees, Howard.
Well, we got to wrap this up, and all I'm going to say is that you don't blink at buying shiny things. You don't blink at $140,000 CAD CAM, which just an oral scanner makes sense to me, but the chairside milling doesn't. A CBCT, my gosh, especially if you're in half of America in big cities, you can send someone to a CBC. When I go to my doctor and he needs an MRI or a CAT scan or whatever, he just sends me somewhere. He didn't go out and buy a $3 million MRI machine. And then you tell the dentist, well, hey, why don't you sign up for this 7-figure business plan and it's only $1,500 a month? No, I can't do that. I mean, that's crazy. So again, 31 years of watches. I'm always trying to give you some good advice. And, dental consultants, the #1 return on investment. Shiny dental toys and tools. They're just what they are. They're the things I put in the bathtub with my grandkids. They're just toys, and the return on investment of so many of those toys is non-existent. But getting your head on straight, getting a vision, getting a plan. And I just want to tell you, it's a huge honor. The only reason this show is a massive success is because I'm able to get guys like you to come on the show and spend an hour with my homies. And his name is Dr. Shahin Safarian in San Diego, California, with irresistible smiles. His website is SafarianMBA.com with the 7-figure dental practice blueprint. Go out there and learn. Shahin, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Howard, awesome. Thank you so much. I had a blast being on this show and spending some time with you. Thank you.